There's been a tornado warning for the past 3 days. I don't think what's outside is a tornado. Part 2. It's the eve of the 4th day now, and the storm isn't showing any signs of stopping. Not from what I can hear anyway. Reading through my last post, a lot of you gave me some really good advice that I ended up putting into action. I managed to get a few little chunks of sleep over the past few days. It's hard. That thing in my house occasionally bangs on the door and calls for me to open it, and my fucking radio is blasting the same message. When I've not been asleep, however, I've been digging out the back of the cellar. You see, when I first bought this house, the previous owner told me that there was a cellar door that opened to the outside, but it was buried under a pile of rubble after the walls on either side of the cellar collapsed. It was strange, but I think it might be my only hope. In my last post, a user recommended that I should try and call one of my neighbors. I have a landline stored down here, so I tried to give them a ring. For the first few calls, I got no response. I assumed they'd either evacuated or it was stored inside their house. I was about ready to give up when that thing outside my fucking door spoke again. "You're not gonna get through to them. I can help. Let me in. I will help you. I have food and water, you know." Food and water, thank God, wasn't an issue. I even had a couple of sacks of dog food for Sam so she wouldn't go hungry. Sam actually seemed to enjoy the situation when she wasn't barking at the thing outside the door. Also, someone on my last post made a comment about me using the dog as a distraction while I run for it. While the idea is definitely valid, I'm afraid I couldn't do that to Sam. She's been with me through thick and thin. Even though my cellar is a bit decrepit, I still kept it constantly stocked with supplies for these exact situations. Well, maybe not this exact situation, but one where I have to stay down here for a few days. Anyway, I tried one last time to call my neighbors. This time, thank God, they actually picked up. Hello? Mr. Robinson? I tried not to sound too shaky on the phone.
"Yes, do you need help, Alec?"
I paused. I couldn't tell them about what was outside my door. They wouldn't believe me and probably just tell me to fuck off. Or Mr. Robinson would come over and potentially risk his life by initiating contact with that thing. Yeah, I'm in a bit of a spot. I'm running out of food and water and my generator's broken. Would it be alright if I stayed with you guys until the storm's out?
Yes, I think that would be okay. We still have plenty of supplies, so come over. Just knock on the door around the back of the house and we'll let you in.
Alright, thanks. See you then. I hung up and prayed to God that I had just spoken to Mr. Robinson and not whatever the fuck was out there. I had a hunch that I was safe going over there though, because if it was the thing that had picked up the phone, I think it would have been much more keen for me to go. Despite its incredible ability to change its voice, subtlety is something that it lacked. In the time between these posts, I've also done some research on what it is. A commenter on my last post said it could have been a Wendigo. I'll be honest, I've never heard of the thing outside of a couple of horror stories. It says on the Wikipedia page that it's a man-eating creature that has some human characteristics, but also that it resides in the forest regions of the East Coast and Great Lakes. So I don't know if one could get all the way down to Kansas. Although I don't quite know what it is, I know that I do not want to come into contact with it. Before I made a mad dash into my neighbor's yard, I had to work out how to distract the thing. Luckily, I still knew that it was right above me, due to it constantly banging on my door. Looking through the crack in between the two doors, I still couldn't see anything despite the constant banging. I'll be honest, I'm kinda thankful for that. I think I'd have a heart attack if I looked out and saw an eyeball looking back at me, or something like that. I knew where it was, though. That was the main thing. For the rest of the 4th day, I used a small sand shovel to dig out the back of the cellar. Even though the weather outside was stormy, the digging left me sweaty and thirsty in the sweltering Kansas heat. The work was hard, especially with my limited equipment. Most of what I dug up was just dirt, however there were bits of rubble from what I assumed was parts of the walls that had caved in. Despite the mud from the leaky ceiling and my shovel breaking, I eventually managed to dig out the backside of the cellar by about 6 p.m. Now, I just had to figure out a way to distract the creature and get me and Sam into my neighbor's cellar without being found by the thing. I spent the next half hour setting up and getting the materials for my plan. Then I gave Sam some dinner and made myself some minute noodles in 59 seconds. I was in a rush to get out. My plan? As quietly as I could, I replaced the board between the cellar doors with an old bit of wood I dug up that was weak in the center. I attached a bit of survival rope to it, tying a loop around the weakest point. Then I packed my backpack with a bit of food, water, and batteries. On top of all that, I packed in Sam. Luckily, she was quite small. Then, with the rope in one hand and my knife in the other, I made my way over to the recently excavated outside door and prepared to make a run for it. "All right, come on in," I screamed at the top of my lungs before swinging the outside cellar doors open and without looking back, made a run for it. I sprinted across the dry grass of my yard and leapt over the poorly maintained hedge into my neighbors before banging on their cellar door and screaming for them to let me in. Mrs. Robinson opened the doors and ushered me in. Come in, you're already drenched just standing there." I jumped down into the cellar and was shocked to find that there was no light. It was almost pitch black inside. "Oh, Alec, you finally arrived," Mr. Robinson said, always glad to have visitors. "Sorry it's a bit dark. Our generator died about an hour ago." "It's fine, really. Better than being out of food," I replied, just glad to be away from that thing. "Yeah, I bet. Anyway, when was the last time you saw your brother, Mark?" "Ooh, what do you mean?" "Oh, he popped in a moment ago. Was looking, wondering where you were." I started to sweat, my adrenaline up and pumping again after a brief calm period. Is he here?" "Hello, Alec."